guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my channel if you're new here. My name's Sarah and I am the mom of a 13-month-old little boy named George. Last week we talked about some Montessori materials that I DIY'd. And this week I thought it'd be fun to rewind and take a look back to when George was just little. Tonight we're going to be talking about baby sensory activities that you can DIY. And just a quick reminder, friends, if you could hit the subscribe button, the like button, and the notification bell, it totally does help me out, so I really do appreciate that. And of course, leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. So let's jump into it. One of the first things I did for George when he was really little is I just made what's called a treasure basket. Treasure basket is literally just a basket. At the time, all I had was plastic baskets from the dollar store, and I just put a few things that I found around the house inside. In this picture, you can see that I've put a little teacup, which is porcelain. I've put a metal container that has a zipper on it, some silicone kitchen tools, really just anything that had different textures, different shapes. At this stage, everything's new to him, so he was just kind of exploring everything, and that was good enough. He really enjoyed it. Other things that I did for him when he was really little, I would do either bags or bottles, and what I did was I just went down to the dollar store one day and I got a few different craft supplies, so some different glitters, some craft buttons, some shells, things like that, and I would put them inside a water bottle. So a sensory water bottle, if you have experience with a little one, you'll probably know that those water bottles that make the sort of crunchy noise is really sensory enough for them just as is, but you can take it one step further, and what I did was I just put a couple of drops of food coloring and I added some glitter, some buttons, and some different things in there, and they just love sort of turning it around and watching all the different materials float through the water. And we actually even played with ours in the bathtub, and he sees what it looks like underwater versus out of water. That was just all that he needed to sort of entertain himself. The other thing that I used to do with very similar sort of crafty type things is I would put them inside a Ziploc bag, and what I did was I just put everything inside. You can do either water, or I've also done hair gel, so it gives it a little more of a squishy texture. You put it inside of the Ziploc container, zip it up, and then just put duct tape over top of the zipper just to make sure that it's extra secure and it doesn't make a mess everywhere. And you can either just leave it loose, or what I've done is I've actually taped it to the table, and they just like to kind of mess around with what's inside the bag, feel the water, feel the hair gel. Another fun thing that you can put inside of these bottles or bags is something called water beads. I managed to find water beads at Walmart, but you can also order them on Amazon, and they're just these tiny little beads that come in a bag, but you put them in water and they expand to be about this size and sort of like a jelly sort of consistency. So they're really neat. I actually enjoy even just playing with them in the bag, in the water, and they look really cool in the bottle when you're going back and forth too. So definitely check that out. The water beads, they're called. And the other thing that I used to do with the bags is you can either tape them down to the high chair, you can have them just on the floor. Really great when you're working on tummy time as well, these bags. So they can be on their tummies and they can just have something to actually play with and look at. I know a lot of babies really don't like their tummy time, so this definitely helps to kind of keep him occupied for a little bit longer. And the other thing I did was I actually taped it up to, we have a patio door in our living room and the sun comes in the afternoons. So I just taped it up to the window, and he would watch the sun come through the colored water or the colored hair gel, and he could see the sparkles and just kind of play around with the different buttons and things that were inside the bag. So the bag and the bottle idea definitely went a long way, and people even do themes. You can do, marine life ones, you can put little animals in them, you can do Christmas themed. I did a fall themed one, and just put different treasures inside and really have fun with it, get creative. You can also look on, of course, Pinterest and Insta. And speaking of taping bags to things, I did another activity with George and the Ziploc bags, and I actually put a couple of different, I did this one a few times, I put a couple different paints inside of a Ziploc, again taped the zip down so that it wouldn't get messy or anything, just in case, and I taped it down to the floor. Now I did, in this video that you see, I actually put a paper in there as well, just so he could see the colors well. In hindsight, I don't think that was necessary, especially because we have a light colored floor. But yeah, so the paint inside, and then he could kind of like squish it around and mix the colors. Another one that you could definitely try with the tummy time as well. Could keep them occupied a little longer. Next up, we started off doing some different art projects with actually just water and cardboard. Believe it or not, I just put a piece of cardboard on the table. Again, I taped it down because if not, it would go flying. And what I did was just put a little, I had one of his bowls that he used for eating, the ones that suction cup to the table, so it wouldn't go flying. Just put some water in it and put it beside him. And I showed him, you dip your finger in the water and then just run it across the cardboard, and it makes different, and you can draw with just your finger and water on cardboard. So that was a good way to start off with some sort of arty type stuff before he even held a crayon or anything like that. And then from there, what we moved on to was finger painting. So with finger painting, I was of course concerned that he was going to put his fingers in his mouth, because he puts everything in his mouth at this stage, and eat the paint and stuff. So I actually found online, and I'll link it below in the description, I found a DIY finger paint recipe, and it's just made with cornstarch, water, and I just put 1 drop of food coloring in each color. I ended up doing a red, a blue, and a yellow, and just put them in an ice cube tray as like our paint tray, and put that beside him. I ended up using, because I figured out that with this recipe, when you put it on the paper actually got soggy really fast. So what I did was, if you just go to the dollar store, you can get a white tablecloth, disposable tablecloth, and that was plastic, so it's just perfect. Or even a white garbage bag, I guess, would work. And he just was able to sort of paint, and then afterwards all I did was wipe it off, and actually I've reused it a few times too. So having either a white garbage bag or a white plastic tablecloth is great to have on hand for things like finger painting. And he wasn't 100% on the finger painting, actually, to be honest. He liked it a little bit, but I guess my expectation was higher, that he'd really like have fun with it and get into it, but it just maybe wasn't the right time. Also, we do baby-led weaning with him, so I feel like every meal is sort of a finger painting thing. But anyways, it was fun to try, and it was fun to make the recipe, and we had fun kind of messing around with it for a little bit. A lot of this stuff is trial and error, you put it in front of them and see what happens, and don't have really any expectations. They might like it, they might not like it, who knows, but it's fun to come up with different ideas and see. It gives you an idea of what your child's into, and then you can kind of create activities from there. Fun with pasta is another one that we did. Speaking of getting creative with food, I made some pasta, and I basically just put it in a giant Tupperware container with some little bath toys, animals, and just let him have at her. And I also gave him a pair of tongs. He really liked tongs for a while, so that was probably the best part for him, was trying to pick up the spaghetti with the tongs and kind of mess it around. I even one time got really creative and tried to do a theme one, and we went outside. It was a summer day, and we have a balcony here, and in the morning the sun actually doesn't hit the balcony. It's still nice and shady, so we went out there, and I made him a tray with some froggies, I made some sand out of Cheerios, so I just blended up some Cheerios in the blender, and that made this like sand that if he ended up eating it, it wouldn't be a big deal. Some sand, some frogs, some stones, things like that, and like some water, and I let him play around with that one. He really enjoyed that, but the edible sand definitely backfired, because he ended up just basically thinking it was a snack and eating it, and he played around with it a little bit. So that was a good one for the summertime outside. One of the ones that I did when he was really little, before he could even actually crawl or anything, he was just sitting up at the time, is I made him sort of like a toy hunt type thing. So what I did was I took a laundry basket, and I just weaved some yarn through the top of it to make it sort of all crisscrossed. And what I did was I put some of his favorite toys inside the basket, so that he had to kind of weave through the yarn to get to his toys. So it was a little bit of a challenge for him, and he didn't have to be super mobile for it, and it didn't take a ton of skill, but it was challenging. So it took him a little bit, but he enjoyed kind of trying to find his toys, trying to get them out, and that actually lasted us for a few weeks. So that one was definitely a good one. Just hopefully you don't need your laundry basket for that time, or hopefully you have a couple extra. So those are my top sensory activity ideas that I did with George when he was younger. The one thing I will say as I finish up and wrap up this video is that really anything can be a sensory activity for baby. The world is a sensory activity for baby. And I know online and on socials you see a lot of, the fun sensory, inspos and all this stuff. And sometimes I feel like there's a lot of pressure to find time to make all of these different activities activities and to really get creative. And I want to just kind of make note that it's not a necessary thing. You don't have to do any of this, and if you're not doing it, it doesn't mean that you're doing a bad job. It's just some fun extra stuff if you want, because really, if you're doing, I find baby-led weaning one of the biggest sensory activities that you can do, and we do it every day. You put food in front of them, boom, there's your sensory activity. There's all different flavors and colors and textures right there on their plate. Take them outside, go to the park. That becomes a sensory activity. Look at the leaves and the flowers, touch the grass. Bath time's a sensory activity. You know, you don't necessarily have to do any of this extra stuff, but it is fun if you have a little extra time and are feeling inspired. So with that, have fun with some of these ideas. Let me know in the comments if you have any ideas or if you've heard of anything that's really great and works. Last reminder to hit that like button, subscribe, and the notification bell. I put out videos every Thursday, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.